U.S. President Donald Trump has announced sweeping new tariffs on all goods imported from America's three largest trading partners, China, Mexico, and Canada. Trump said the U.S. would impose tariffs beginning on Tuesday of 25% on Canada and Mexico and 10% on China. Canadian energy faces a lower 10% tariff. The Republican president posted on social media that the tariffs were necessary to protect Americans, pressing the three nations to do more to curb the manufacture and export of illicit fentanyl, and for Canada and Mexico to reduce illegal immigration into the U.S. He has indicated he is ready to escalate the duties if the countries retaliate. The order drew swift retaliation and an undeniable sense of betrayal from the country's North American neighbors, as a trade war erupted among the longtime allies. The actions taken today by the White House split us apart instead of bringing us together, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in a somber tone, as he announced that his country would put matching 25% tariffs on up to $155 billion in U.S. imports, including alcohol and fruit. The Premier of the Canadian province of British Columbia, David Eby, specifically called on residents to stop buying liquor from U.S. red states, and said it was removing American alcohol brands from government store shelves as a response to the tariffs. Mexico's president also ordered retaliatory tariffs. We categorically reject the White House's slander that the Mexican government has alliances with criminal organizations, as well as any intention of meddling in our territory, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum wrote in a post on X while saying she had instructed her economy secretary to implement a response that includes retaliatory tariffs and other measures in defense of Mexico's interests. If the United States government and its agencies wanted to address the serious fentanyl consumption in their country, they could fight the sale of drugs on the streets of their major cities, which they don't do, and the laundering of money that this illegal activity generates that has done so much harm to its population. China will file a claim with the WTO and take necessary countermeasures to safeguard its interests, the Ministry of Commerce said on Sunday, after the U.S. announced it would impose tariffs on Chinese goods. The unilateral tariff hikes by the U.S. seriously violate World Trade Organization rules, the ministry said, adding that the move not only fails to address America's own issues, but also disrupts normal China-U.S. economic and trade cooperation. We urge the U.S. to take an objective and rational approach to its domestic issues, such as fentanyl, rather than resorting to tariff threats against other countries, the ministry said.
What are tariffs and how do they work? Tariffs are a tax on imports. Tariffs are typically charged as a percentage of the price a buyer pays a foreign seller. In the United States, tariffs are collected by Customs and Border Protection agents at 328 ports of entry across the country. Tariffs are intended mainly to protect domestic industries. By raising the price of imports, tariffs can protect homegrown manufacturers. They may also serve to punish foreign countries for committing unfair trade practices, like subsidizing their exporters or dumping products at unfairly low prices. Before the federal income tax was established in 1913, tariffs were a major revenue driver for the government. From 1790 to 1860, tariffs accounted for 90% of federal revenue, according to Douglas Irwin, a Dartmouth College economist who has studied the history of trade policy. Tariffs fell out of favor as global trade grew after World War II. The government needed vastly bigger revenue streams to finance its operations. In the fiscal year that ended the 30th of September 2024, the government collected around $80 billion in tariffs and fees. That's a trifle next to the $2.5 trillion that comes from individual income taxes and the $1.7 trillion from Social Security and Medicare taxes. Tariffs can also be used to pressure other countries on issues that may or may not be related to trade. In 2019, for example, Trump used the threat of tariffs as leverage to persuade Mexico to crack down on waves of Central American migrants crossing Mexican territory on their way to the United States. The United States in recent years has gradually retreated from its post-World War II role of promoting global free trade and lower tariffs. That shift has been a response to the loss of U.S. manufacturing jobs, widely attributed to unfettered free trade and an increasingly powerful China. Economists generally consider tariffs self-defeating. Tariffs raise costs for companies and consumers that rely on imports. They're also likely to provoke retaliation. The European Union, for example, punched back against Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminium by taxing U.S. products, from bourbon to Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Likewise, China responded to Trump's trade war by slapping tariffs on American goods, including soybeans and pork, in a calculated drive to hurt its supporters in farm country. A study by economists at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the University of Zurich, Harvard, and the World Bank concluded that Trump's tariffs failed to restore jobs to the American heartland. The tariffs neither raised nor lowered U.S. employment where they were supposed to protect jobs, the study found. Despite Trump's 2018 taxes on imported steel, for example, the number of jobs at U.S. steel plants barely budged. They remained right around 140,000. By comparison, Walmart alone employs 1.6 million people in the United States. Worse, the retaliatory taxes imposed by China and other nations on U.S. goods had negative employment impacts, especially for farmers, the study found. These retaliatory tariffs were only partly offset by billions in government aid that Trump doled out to farmers. The Trump tariffs also damaged companies that relied on targeted imports. If Trump's trade war fizzled as policy, though, it succeeded as politics. The study found that support for Trump and Republican congressional candidates rose in areas most exposed to the import tariffs, the industrial Midwest and manufacturing-heavy southern states like North Carolina and Tennessee.